So arriving. Arriving is constant. So arrive now with some shoulder rolls, maybe some chin movement. Maybe you give yourself a big hug. And then hands flop. Arms relax. Take a moment to consider any injuries or conditions that you're dealing with, so that as we move into the shapes, you move with you, kindly, lovingly. You move in ways that allow you to feel stretches and breath, and not ways that increase your pain.
I love both you cats.
Take a long, slow breath in through your nose. Open your mouth and sigh. Lift your heart and bow your head. Gather your hands together in front of your heart, palm to palm, or hand on top of hand. Or if it's more meaningful for you, definitely have the hands on the legs. Grateful for their being here, their support, and their ability to relax right now. Noticing the quality of your breath, the anticipation of what comes next, and see if the shoulders can settle. See if you can allow yourself to hover in the unknowing, in that place between now and what comes next. Resting with full confidence in your ability to choose the version of the pose, the note of your own, everything that follows in your practice. So with breath and sound, let's chant, hum, or listen to the sound of Om 3 times together. Soft jaw as you inhale. Stay where you are. Maybe release your hands to your thighs. Refrain from changing. Be still and silent. Invite yourself to feel and know this moment and your experience of it. Notice your ease. Notice your discomfort. Notice clarity or confusion. Notice shame or pride. Notice pain or ease. In noticing and feeling and knowing this moment, anchor yourself in the now. And the now is where you can anchor in your courage, your kindness, your goodness, your wisdom, and your abilities. With hands on your thighs, chin parallel with the ground, take a few shoulder rolls, forward, up, back, and down. Maybe you go back, up, forward, and down. Within your choice, leave your hands where they are or bring your hands to your ribs. You might be up on your high ribs, your middle ribs, your low ribs. You may be below your ribs. See if there's a way for you to find a space for your hands to be on your side bodies and let your shoulders soften. And with the eyes closed and with nothing but gratitude for anything you are touching and feeling as much as you are able to, follow the pattern of your breath as you expand and as you contract. As you softly open and gently close. As you rise with breath, as you fall back to the ground with exhale. Always this pattern of open and close, of expand and contract. So it is with our thoughts, with our feelings, with our knowledge. We open to maybe uncomfortable things. We come home to what feels safe and secure. Allow yourself to follow this pattern in your physical body, maybe in your emotional and mental body throughout your practice. Slide the hands to your thighs if they've been on your sides. Notice the release and the muscles of the arms and the elbows. Blink the eyes open if they're closed. And set yourself up into whatever version of heart bench works best for you at home today. Does everyone have yoga blocks with them or no? If it's no, raise your hand. Great. So one block on the tall height, one block on the medium height. Sometimes the blocks are too hard. You could place a blanket over it. You could also place, beach towel over it. The beautiful thing about being home is you have so many different levels and layers of thickness to work with. So sitting back close to your supports, holding on to the block, place it right underneath the back of the heart. Let the back of the head find the tall block. And your choice is to leave your feet on the ground and your knees coming in towards center. You have a choice to release your legs long. You can also release your knees out to the side. Arms are similar opportunities. Elbows close in or further away. With the arms, you choose. You choose palms up or palms down. You choose hands fisted or relaxed. You choose shoulders climbing up in towards the sides of the neck or shoulders gently softening down. See if you can nestle your chin down towards the notch of the throat once you've arrived, lengthening the back of the neck. And draw a long, slow breath in through your nose. Open your mouth to sigh. Maybe you draw a blanket, a pillow, a scarf across your chest or across your thighs. Some people enjoy using bolsters or more weight. It can be interesting to experiment with what does the body love as a reminder to soften, right? So sometimes it's a gentle covering as opposed to a full weight. What works best for you this moment? What allows you to feel the ground beneath you? To remember that you have practiced yoga before and found a place to be in the shapes. Not always one of ease and comfort, sometimes one of distraction and discomfort. But a moment, a vacation away from all else. And draw a breath in. Let a breath go. I'd like to read to you a little bit more from Pema Chodron's book, Living Beautifully with Uncertainty and Change. This invitation to pause and feel your feelings and anchor in the now is what Pema talks about as refraining. Shantideva said that when the mind is wild with mockery and filled with pride and haughty arrogance, and when you want to show the hidden faults of others, to bring up old dissensions or to act deceitfully, when you want to fish for praise or criticize or spoil another's name, use harsh language sparring for a fight, it's then like a log, you should remain. That log is not putting up with abuse. That log is not allowing yourself to be hurt when you don't have to be. That log is pausing to consider what is happening around you. Sometimes there are feelings that are hurtful. Sometimes there are lessons we learn that feel like they hurt our heart. There is no race. You have already arrived. You have already won. You are here in this moment, able to practice yoga. You are able to pause and notice, and then choose. Choose the version of the shape that brings you the stretch, the opening, the sensation you look for today. Choose the thoughts that inspire you to take care of you, to find what feeds your soul, so that you can enjoy this opportunity to anchor every moment in the now, to enjoy the work you choose to do, to enjoy a respite from trying to be anyone else and anywhere else, and do the work that you do today that might not be your favorite thing. If there's no temptation to act out, then the commitment to not harm won't be as transformative as when we want to speak out or act out, when we yearn for wealth, attention, fame, recognition, but we don't follow through on our desire. Maybe we want everyone to like us, or you want to put someone down and cultivate advantage for yourself. Clinging to views and opinions, thinking you're always right and lording it over others keeps you endlessly stuck. What's the remedy? Anchor now. See what you're doing. Note harmful thoughts, futile striving, and pause. Notice how you feel. Notice your thoughts. Notice your actions. When we refrain from those habitual thoughts or behaviors, uncomfortable feelings will still be there. They don't magically disappear. Over the years, Pema says, I've come to call resting with the discomfort the detox period, because when you don't act on your habitual reactions, it's like giving up an addiction. You're left with the feelings you were trying to escape. The underlying anxiety can be strong. You can experience it as hopelessness or terror. But the basic view is that if you can remain with the feeling, if you can go through the fear, the hopelessness, the resistance, you find your basic goodness. Everything opens up. This poem by Rick Field speaks to this process. The world, absolutely pure as it is. Behind the fear, vulnerability. Behind that, sadness, then compassion. And behind that, the vast sky. One more inhale together here. And sigh. Slide the elbows in, turn the palms down. And gently move anything on top of your belly or chest off, and then bring your feet to the floor, your knees to the sky. Bring your elbows back just enough so that you can press down to look at your knees, and then lift up. You can roll over to your right side and come up to sit, or you can press yourself up. Slide your feet forward, belly to thighs, shoulders to knees, chin to chest. What feels nicest on your shoulders? Arms draped forward, elbows bent, or arms dangling. Draw the hands back, roll from the bottom to the top, lifting the face last. Turn to your side and move whatever was behind you off to the side. Come back far enough on your practice space that it's easy to come into a child's pose. So you could have a blanket or a pillow across your ankles or behind your knees. You can have your knees together or apart. You can slide down and make a pillow with the hands for the head. You could bring one of your blankets or blocks there. Find what softens your shoulders the most. Sometimes I support the side of my head. Sometimes I support closer to the temple and let the space underneath the neck and chest be there. What invites you to soften down the most here? And just a few breaths here in this child's pose, a few breaths to feel how it feels to lean forward. One of the wonderful things we are is a thinking and learning animal. We have traditions and habitual responses that keep us stuck. So maybe leaning back and leaning forward, maybe inhaling and exhaling. Maybe we change a pattern by pausing, noticing what we like and don't like, giving ourselves permission to be uncomfortable or unsure, so that bigger patterns that keep us stuck in really uncomfortable ways can be gently let go or can gently change. Start to bring your arms around beside you or in front of you. Make your way up to your hands and your knees. We're going to move into Sphinx pose, which is a back bend. My friend Betsy doesn't do back bend, so for Betsy, I would recommend her making a supported, almost restorative child's pose with many blankets so that you can give all of your weight over to whatever is in front of you. And think about maybe having blocks so that the elbows and the shoulders are really soft. If back bending is something that your body enjoys today, then you would come to lay down on your belly with your arms kind of like that Sphinx monument in Egypt. Might be nice to rock side to side. It might be nice to put another blanket underneath your hip points or your belly if that's tender there. You could have the elbows and the palms touching. Sometimes that's really sweet. See where it's easy for your head to be. So elbows usually a little forward might give you the option to relax the head back. Some people might choose to bring a block and rest the head here. Arms could be forward, palms on the ground, palms could be up. What change does that make? Allow yourself to arrive again and again in the shape. So a little rock of the hips side to side, maybe a little wiggle of the toes. Maybe you gently look forward onto something that you like. I've noticed that practicing at home, getting down onto the floor, I can move into critical dust bunny mode. So I invite you to consider bringing something pretty into your practice space to look at. Some of you are lucky enough to have beloved pets moving around. Right, but choosing where you look, choosing how you look, with a critical eye or with a gentle eye. Maybe softness starts there in this shape. Letting the heels just move out or in. Pema says with this practice, this exploration of inner renunciation, we can gradually see beyond our fear-based fixed identity. When we make a compassionate, fearless relationship with the reality of our human condition, with our habits, our emotions, with groundlessness, then gradually something shifts fundamentally. And we experience the sky-like, unbiased nature of the mind. Her teacher said that this state of mind is completely fresh, completely new, completely unbiased, and we call it enlightenment. In other words, enlightenment is already here. We just need to touch it, know it, and trust it. First, we make a journey through our resistance, knowing its every nuance, its strategies, its exits. In this way, we uncover that awareness. We seem to be really good at beating ourselves up when we aren't doing what we want to do. Maybe we call that making a mistake or failing. There's a practice in Buddhism called sojong that gives an opportunity to reflect on where we are in terms of whatever our commitments are. Traditionally, sojong takes place twice a month on full and new moon days. The day before, each person reviews the preceding 2 weeks and reflects. And then they let it go. Is there a way to let go? Is there a way to change the elbows or the wrists or the hands to let go of tension in the shoulders? Is there a way to trust the ground underneath your belly? So you feel that movement of breath in and out in the side body. Maybe you feel it in the low back. Just a couple more inhales here and exhales here. If there's a block underneath your head or your chin, see how slowly and gently you can move it forward or off to the side. If you're in a supported child's pose, make the movement of the supports forward so that you can come to lay down on your belly. And we'll all move our elbows out to the side of the practice area. So you can bring the side of your face or your forehead down to your stacked palms or arms. The weight of you moves forward and down into the arms. So some weight of you is taken out of another place. Do you feel a leveling out here? Do you feel a release or openness across the back? Do the legs release tension you weren't even aware was there? Lift the head up, shift over to the left side of your practice area. No, go to the right side of your practice area. Go to the right side of your practice area so you can move out your left arm shoulder height. So it's not back down behind you, it's not up above your head, moving straight your wrist right out of your shoulder. You might like to have a block or a blanket here at the top of your area where you're practicing. Put the right hand on the ground and then roll over onto your left side so the left arm is still behind you. This might be where you want to put a block or a blanket. You can bend both knees and have them gently stacked. You can continue to press with this right hand and roll over and maybe put that right foot on the ground. Sometimes the ground seems too far away. You could put a Play-Doh textbook back there and place your foot on it. Sometimes having a higher thing can help. You can have both knees bent, both feet on the floor. So feeling connected to the ground across your belly and your hips, then the option is there to lift the right arm, turn the palm to face behind you, and then bending the elbow, bring the hand to the thigh or the hips, dangle at the low back. There is the option to reach the hands, but if you reach the hands behind you, it's not a clenching or grasping. it's the gentlest intertwining. Like when it's insanely hot and sticky and a little person wants to hold hands with you, you hold it very gently. So you may have looked up at or over at your screen as you moved into this shape. See if maybe you can soften your chin down so your shoulder blades could relax down away from your ears. I think it's useful to have students on mute in Zoom so they don't have to worry about noises in their area, and then we don't have to worry about weird electronic interference type noises. But please, please, please feel free to unmute if there's any question about a shape or an experience. So starfish opens the chest, has the option to kind of twist the low back a little bit. The more the upper arms are up towards your shoulders and not down towards your low back, perhaps a different kind of opening can happen across the biceps, the front of your arms or your armpits. It's not unusual for this bottom arm to fall asleep a bit here, that pins and needles feeling. I think that's okay because we won't be here all that long. But you have to decide for yourself what feelings are good and bad. If it's a zingy, nervy, painful thing, then please, please lean forward, relax the arms, maybe pad up if it feels that something is pressing into the ground too much. We set boundaries in our relationships with others. Set boundaries in your yoga practice as well. Connecting with your breath right now. Not forcing big inhales and exhales, because you could force yourself to sound yogic, right? Let the belly be soft. Let the jaw relax. Feel the ground underneath your feet or your calves. Maybe close your eyes. Follow the pattern of the breath. Maybe when we follow the pattern of the breath, instead of the patterns of the thoughts, we develop the ability to be in this moment, to feel these feelings, not the past feelings, not anticipating the future ones, but to kind of pare down the experience into something that is understandable or relatable, or even something that we can be aware of. And just a couple more breaths in this shape, and starfish on this side. If the fingers are interlaced behind you, release that. Very gently lift your right arm up, bend your elbow, put that hand in front of you down on the ground. Softly reach both legs long. And with your chin tucked and moving gently, roll off of that left shoulder. And come to the middle of your mat area, elbows by your ribs, hands under your shoulders. You can put the head on a block. You can let the head dangle. You can make movements in the shoulders. You can sway the hips side to side. And then pause for a second, bring the hands in, really relax the ankles, the heels, the shoulders. When we make time to rest, we make time to digest, we give ourselves permission to move away from that game show mentality. As you're ready, slide over to the other side. It'll be the right arm that stretches out long. Left hand presses down, you roll over there. Maybe support the head. The top leg bends, the foot comes to the ground. Both legs bend and stack. When you're ready, top arm up, flip the palm behind you and gently bring that elbow and hand down. Hand can dangle behind you. Fingers can gently release. So if the fingers are gently finding one another behind you, consider that instead of reaching this left arm, wrenching it back, maybe instead you roll this left hip back so the left ribs move back, and then the whole torso moves back, and that connection might be something that you find and maintain gently. Both knees can be bent, both feet can be on the floor. I'm going to come out of the shape so I can see you. As you've come into the shape, consider what's going on in the neck and the chest. And see if it can soften. Maybe that's chin down, maybe it's shoulders softer. It seems to me that my education taught me that if I did this and not that, if I looked like this but not like that, if I said this and not that, then everything would be great. That it was completely within my ability to do enough things to be happy with how others perceived me. I ended up being disappointed a lot. I think one of the beautiful messages of yoga is that we are our teachers, and that we come home to our experience of being alive in this body, connecting with our special blend of strengths, and that we fall in love with our humanity, our struggles and our triumphs, because we so well know all the efforts that we make. We so know how hard we try. So I'm going to share with you some words of David White about disappointment. Disappointment is inescapable but necessary, a misunderstood mercy, and when approached properly, an agency for transformation and the hidden underground engine of trust and generosity in a human life. The attempt to create a life devoid of disappointment is the attempt to avoid the vulnerabilities that make the conversation of life real, moving, and lifelike. It's the attempt to avoid our own necessary and merciful heartbreak. To be disappointed is to reassess ourself and our inner world, and to be called to the larger foundational reality that lies beyond any false self we had, only projected upon the world. I'll continue that in a moment, but let's release this shape. So bringing the left arm back, up, over, and down in front of you. Take your time. Straighten, lengthen the legs, maybe a gentle bend in the knees. And then with that left hand down on the ground, roll off of that right shoulder. Come to lie on your belly with your legs long. If you want to move up to hands and knees just to release the shape, you're welcome to do so. Notice if the jaw is feeling something and wiggle it side to side. If you're on the belly, bring your elbows by your ribs, your hands underneath your shoulders, and do make your way up to hands and knees. You can stretch one leg and then the other. You can wiggle the shoulders side to side, let the head dangle and move. And then as you're ready, finding a way to sit down onto your bottom with your legs out long in a straddle type shape. You can sit on the edge of a blanket. You can sit on the edge of a bolster. It might be nice to have things to put underneath the back of your knees if you know that you are a hyperextender. If you sit on the edge of something, do your personal best to sit on the edge of it so that it invites your hip points to soften. That might be softened down, that might be softened forward. So if this is 100% of my straddle, I'm going to lean forward at like 80 or 75%. So when you're ready, chin down, elbows forward and down, stretch yourself forward and down with your legs out wide. So you could use your blocks to make a really nice tower for your arms and your head. You could place something gently over it and put your head right on it. You could have your hands resting on your thighs, palms up. If your arms are long, maybe it feels nice with them on the ground, but see how soft you can make your elbows here. The thing I love about using props here is that you will feel the connection of you to the props, and you can then lower them down or move them forward as you feel more pressure on them. You decide if what you are touching is hard or soft. Do you need the feedback from something firm? Do you need the welcoming of something soft here so that the shoulders are soft, the feet are relaxed side to side? On days like today when it's going to rain and my knees are really unhappy, I like taking a big blanket and kind of bunching it up just a little bit underneath the backs of my knees. It doesn't really look all that organized, but it feels so welcoming and stops my knees from having a stretch and instead lets it be across the back of the legs. You might even feel it in your ankles. You might feel it across your low back. What we call disappointment, David says, may be just the first stage of our emancipation into the next greater pattern of existence. Oh, it's like good news, right? What we call disappointment may be just the first stage of our emancipation into the next greater pattern of existence. To be disappointed is to reappraise not only reality itself, but our foundational relationship to the patterns of events, places, and people that surround us, and which, until we were properly disappointed, we had misinterpreted, misunderstood. Disappointment is the first fruitful foundation of genuine heartbreak from which we risk ourselves in a marriage, a work, a friendship, or with life itself. The measure of our courage is the measure of our willingness to embrace disappointment, to turn towards it rather than away. The understanding that every real conversation of life involves having our hearts broken somewhere along the way, and that there is no sincere path we can follow where we will not be fully and immeasurably let down and brought to earth, and where what initially looks like a betrayal eventually puts real ground under our feet. In growing, we struggle with unlearning the lessons well-meaning people taught us. Patterns of how to hold our body and breathe. Patterns of what to wear and how to eat. And subtly noticing the tension between our fingers and toes, we're inviting ourselves to notice the microaggressions against ourselves and that we are guilty of committing against others. I invite you to stay here for just a few more breaths. I'm just going to change the muting so the feedback that we are experiencing changes. Gently bring your fingers to the ground beside you, behind you, in front of you, and press into the ground to roll up to sit. Softly bend your knees, maybe bring your hands under them or into the back of the thighs, and come to sit in a square shape pose, which could be right leg on top of left leg. It could be right shin in front of left shin. So square pose is bringing your thighs, your thigh bones closer in, right? They were out at angles and now you're bringing them closer in, but everyone folds forward in a different way. So your thigh bones may be parallel, your knees may be closer together, your feet hanging over. You may have them further apart. See how to ground down here. If there's a big space between your right knee and the ground, see about taking maybe a blanket or a pillow or something right underneath the thigh, supporting this connecting place where your right thigh bone comes into your hip and your torso. Support there, and then lean forward and down. Same options really apply with making a tower, with having arms. So consider if we're going to have this tower option for the arms and the head 4 times today in practice. Do you want to give yourself permission to go to the normal, the safe, the reassuring? That could be lovely. That could be perfect. Do you want to consider changing the flip of the palms or what you're contacting, block or blanket? There can be a quality in these shapes where we avoid disappointment and discomfort. And sometimes coming to that place where it is uncomfortable at first provides somehow the body with the best support for releasing something that has been being held unbeknownst to us. The measure of our courage is the measure of our willingness to embrace disappointment, to turn towards it rather than away. The understanding that every real conversation of life involves having our hearts broken somewhere along the way, and that there is no sincere path we can follow where we will not be fully and immeasurably let down and brought to earth, and where what initially looks like a betrayal eventually puts real ground under our feet. The great question in disappointment is whether we allow it to bring us to ground, to a firmer sense of ourself, a surer sense of our world, and what is good and possible for us in that world, or whether we experience it only as a wound that makes us retreat from further participation. The great question in disappointment is whether we allow it to bring us to ground, to a firmer sense of ourself, a surer sense of our world, and what is good and possible for us in that world, or whether we experience it only as a wound that makes us retreat from further participation. Disappointment is a friend to transformation, a call to both accuracy and generosity in the assessment of ourselves and others, a test of sincerity and a catalyst of resilience. Disappointment is just the initial meeting with the frontier of an evolving life, an invitation to reality, which we expected to be one particular way and turns out to be another. Often something more difficult, more overwhelming, and strangely in the end, more rewarding. And just a few more breaths in this way, in this shape. Slide the elbows back, the hands back, press down to rise up. Move the things in front of you further forward or out of your way. Put one foot on the floor and then the other. Feet can be close together, further apart. Make some gentle movement side to side. It might feel good to lengthen the legs and flex and point the feet. And then we'll move into the other side. So it could be right shin with left shin in front of it. There's always the option too to have the bottom leg long. You could also stack the shins again with the other one on top. So remembering that you're moving the thigh bones closer together, you decide where is that place that when the thigh bones are in relationship that way, it's easier to fold forward. Taking care of your knee the whole time, padding up behind the knee, behind the hip, underneath the thigh, and as you're ready, folding forward, down and in. I'm usually a really big fan of supporting the head and the shoulders, but with these 3 forward folds in a row, it might be an interesting opportunity to have the blocks under your wrists or forearms and let your head dangle. And let your feet, your soles of your feet soften. Considering how you could relax your elbows. That might mean things being out away from center or closer into center. It could be support under a different part of your forearm. It could be a blanket across the blocks so that the support there is softer. Sometimes when I think about disappointment and the sense of coming from others, it's about having approval for my abilities or opinions or very being. If I define my happiness and humanity by how others are feeling about me, I've given away so much agency. Disappointment, pain, frustration can so often be a disconnect between what we feel and know about ourselves and how others treat us and see us and perceive us. Being a step parent has been the single most greatest challenge and gift in my life. In teaching others, whether they are someone in the family or someone you meet, you come up against another's learning curve and your desires around it. Under the right circumstances, it can be a really great window into your ability to teach yourself, to give yourself permission to read the books, go to the seminars, hear from others. So that you move forward from a place of understanding you, what triggers you, what soothes you. Certainly, we do need to understand the effect our words and actions and beliefs have on others and do no harm, and in fact help. But it starts with us, doing no harm to ourselves. Understanding that disappointment is a great ground for choosing the next thought and word and deed, for choosing the next way to heal yourself, connect with your ability to find things that strengthen your body, that connect you with how marvelous it is to be able to breathe and stretch right here and right now. And just a couple more breaths in the square pose. And draw your elbows back, press your hands down, roll yourself up to sit, taking your time. Moving things out of the way in front of you to bring feet to the ground, maybe knees go side to side, maybe legs stretch out long. So I'm going to invite you to come into one more forward fold, and it could be a yin yoga forward fold, or it could be a restorative yoga forward fold. So I'm going to bring over a bench. So for the yin yoga forward fold, it would be, instead of the legs being apart as they were before, you would have the legs forward. Some people find this pose easiest with the legs parallel. Some people find a little bend in the knees is easiest. Again, you can be sitting on the edge of something. You can have something underneath the back of your knees. It's good to, I think, to wiggle your legs side to side after what you've just done. And then you bring the chin down and in. So in a yin yoga forward fold, you feel a stretch in the back of your legs, in the back of, in your low back. You might feel it in your seat or your calves. In a restorative yoga forward fold, you don't feel that stretch. So you could come with a chair and a blanket across it, and gently hug yourself here. Without a bench at your disposal or a chair that works like this right now, the same experience might be found by bringing lots of cushions, lots of pillows, maybe blankets. It might be a good thing in coming into a restorative shape to go to the place where it feels like it's too much, and then see if it really is. So the yin shape is feeling a stretch in the back of the thighs. The restorative version is feeling held by the props, is bringing the connection to the ground closer to you, so that all the muscles along the chest and the back, all the muscles that move for breathing, can relax. In the yin shape, notice if it feels that the joints get locked, inviting there to be a softness in the muscles of the thighs, and the calves, and the upper arms and lower arms. In these times of quarantine and in this time of protests and social unrest, I think it's really useful to get comfortable with some silence in your life. Making space to pause. So physically we slow down in the yin or restorative yoga practice. Tuning out the chatter around us so that we can really connect with what it is we're experiencing right now. These are David White's words on silence. Silence is frightening, an intimation of the end, the graveyard of fixed identities. Real silence puts any present understanding to shame, orphans us from certainty, leads us beyond the well-known and accepted reality, and confronts us with the unknown and previously unacceptable conversations about to break in upon our lives. Silence does not end skepticism, but makes it irrelevant. Belief or unbelief in any previously rehearsed story meets the wind in the trees, the distant horn in the busy harbor, or the watching eye and listening ear of a puzzled loved one. In silence, essence speaks to us of essence itself and asks for a kind of unilateral disarmament. Our own essential nature slowly emerging as the defended periphery atomizes and falls apart. As the busy edge dissolves, we begin to join the conversation through the portal of present unknowing, robust vulnerability, revealing in the way we listen a different ear, a more perceptive eye, an imagination refusing to come too early to a conclusion, and belonging to a different person than the one who first entered the quiet. Out of the quiet emerges the sheer incarnational presence of the world. A presence that seems to demand a moving internal symmetry in the one breathing and listening, equal to its own breathing, listening, elemental powers. If you're in the yin yoga caterpillar shape, start to draw your elbows back, press your hands down, walk yourself gently back upright. In the restorative forward fold, bring your chin forward, bow your head, lean back and up, and gently move whatever you've brought forward off to the side. Bring your feet to the floor, bring your bottom to the middle of your practice space, and lay down long onto your back. Draw your knees in, give yourself a nice hug, and rock side to side. We're moving into a reclining or supine twist. If twisting is not for you, you could take the version that Betsy takes, which would be to have your calves forward and up on a height, and bring your arms overhead and gently stretch the front body by having the back body be supported. If twisting is okay in your body today, lengthen your left leg long, bring your right knee over, across, and down beside the leg. Maybe drawing blankets or pillows there to meet it. Maybe you have blocks underneath your knee or your ankle. And then as you're ready, opening your arms out, letting the back of your hands touch something. So sometimes when you extend, let's say this right arm here, the shoulder doesn't touch the ground. So you could bring a pillow right up underneath that side body to feel more release of this right side, the right ribs down, even as that right rib stacks and points up. It could be that you like space there, so you could have a pillow or a blanket further out so that the back of the hand touches something, supporting you as that shoulder does not touch the ground. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, and then sigh. To become deeply silent, David continues, is not to become still, but to become tidal and seasonal. A coming and going that has its own inimitable essential character. A story not fully told, like the background of the sea, or the rain falling, or the river going on out of sight, out of our lives. Reality met on its own terms demands absolute presence and absolute giving away. An ability to live on equal terms with the fleeting and the eternal, the hardly touchable and the fully possible, a full bodily appearance and disappearance, arrested giving in and giving up, another identity braver, more generous, and more here than the one looking hungrily for the easy, unearned answer. Let's inhale together here. Exhale, sigh. If you're in that reclining twist, start to come onto your back again. So drawing the bent knee in, putting that foot on the floor, bringing the other knee to bend that other foot on the floor, lift the hips, lay the low back down, and then draw the feet in, the knees in, the thighs in, and rock side to side. Lengthen the legs and arms if that feels good for a stretch. And then it'll be the right leg long, the left leg coming over and down. Seeing if you like space there with blocks or just one prop, or feeling supported from the whole length of that lower leg, from the knee to the ankle. And then when you're ready, extending the arms out, remembering the option to bring props closer underneath that left shoulder blade, or just the back of the left hand. Let the chin relax down towards the chest. Let the head be fully supported where you are. Space between the teeth as you breathe in and breathe out. Do you notice the layers of engagement softening? And this muscle relaxes, the bone sinks down. This muscle spreads out, maybe you even hear something along the low back as a twist happens. The muscles that move the torso and the arms relaxing, maybe you feel the arm bones drawn in and the elbows sink down more. In stillness and silence, we can become aware of the abilities, the processes in our bodies that happen all the time. The mind and the ego seem so bent on constant movement. Maybe this yoga practice can invite you to trust the wisdom of all the parts of you. Emotional wisdom, physical wisdom, and to trust your wisdom, your sense of knowing when you hear a teaching, whether it is right or wrong. So many new teachings being offered, some upsetting, some reassuring. Finding in this practice the ability to pause, to be like a log, to be silent, to notice disappointment as it comes up and recognize it as a way to find ground, reality, a place from which to move deeper and forward into the life you hope, dream, desire, and is most certainly waiting for you. Draw your elbows in so your hands come to touch your torso. Move your knees so that you are stacked up on your knees. Roll over to your right. Give yourself a hug. And then press yourself up to come to sit. I'd like to show you a way to make what I've decided to call a cradle for the body. Right, we're so nice to babies. Can we make a cradle for ourselves so that we can find a space now to relax the body after all this stretching and anchoring? So everyone has yoga blocks. Let's start there. One block on the medium height, one block on the low height. Bed pillows or bolsters over this. It could also be a series of blankets folded up into long rectangles. Two more blankets or cushions beside you, maybe rolled up into a little bit of a cylinder. Something across the back of whatever you've created here that will allow you to feel the head supported and maybe a little bit of something over the shoulders. So my go-to recently has been a beach towel. It seems much more easily movable. There's something about that fabric that moves on itself more easily. Maybe an extra scarf or blanket to put over the feet, the chest, the body. So coming to sit against whatever incline you've made. Drawing blankets close in if they're in cylinders. The blanket is touching my ankles and touching my hips. Sometimes we don't have so many blankets around, so you could make just a pillow folded up and bring it in so your knee doesn't drop out to the side. So you decide, a cylinder or just a really nice fluffy blanket here so that the knee can drop out and you don't feel any stretch. You might set that up first and then lay down onto your back, or you might lay down onto your back and then draw these things in. So two different versions, one supporting the knee, one supporting the ankle to the hip. Arms down by your side. If you are blessed with more props around you, you could bring more pillows or blankets or even books underneath your elbows to then have your hands rest forward. You could have the hands out on these cushions. Maybe reach for whatever is under the head and gently bring it over the shoulders. Drawing a big full breath in, holding it, and sighing. 3 times at your pace, drawing in and letting go. Noticing any inner dialogue about doing that comes up. And inviting this cradle shape to be one where you digest, where you give the body the option to be so still, to be so held and cradled, that the need for the muscles to get tight again, the need for the connective tissue to draw back to be ready. If we can soften here, we might have the opportunity for the space in the body to be kind of a lasting change of space. In Pema Chodron's book, Fail, Fail Again Better, she talks about humans and discomfort and disappointment. When we feel weird sensations, emotions. She says, it seems our organism is very much programmed towards seeking comfort and avoiding discomfort at all costs. At a very primitive level, we associate discomfort, which can come from feeling like we failed or with danger, or even if the discomfort is subtle, a small discomfort. At some level, our brain processes it as danger, as something to get rid of. So she says, I feel as humans, we need a lot of help to support us in not running away from what is unpleasant and insecure and seemingly dangerous. In other words, she says, I'd say that drive to blame ourselves or others comes from our inability to stay present with what is. Because the sense of failure challenges us. It's uncomfortable and unpleasant. We can begin to understand that we can be with those feelings of failure, to allow those feelings, or even train ourselves to say, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a failure. I'm not a mess up. I haven't blown it. Or we could say, fundamentally, I'm good, and I can allow this feeling. I can experience this feeling. I can stay with this feeling for now, maybe 2 seconds, maybe 4, or maybe longer. You invite yourself to stay with the sensation of being held and cradled, just for now, for 2 seconds, for 4 seconds. No worrying when it will end or how it will end. Feeling the ground beneath you. Feeling the breath deepen. Coming home to a sense of your ability to anchor in a gentleness here and now. And this cradle pose could be perfect for your Shavasana. Or you might enjoy a more neutral position for Shavasana. If you'd like to change the position for Shavasana, make your way to bringing your feet to the floor and gently shifting your hips to the side, rolling over. Enjoy a full breath in and out, maybe several. And then use the hands to press down. Perhaps taking anything that was on this reclining set of pillows or bolsters to leave on your practice space for your Shavasana. So maybe you lie down with the head on whatever surface you're practicing on today, or maybe there's a soft pillow or something there. It could be the supports that you had under your arms would be lovely for your hands in Shavasana, or maybe you like a simple Shavasana with just one roll underneath the backs of the thighs, or maybe even nothing under the thighs. Whether you change the shape or have stayed in the shape, notice your arrival to a place of not doing anymore. And when you arrive there, welcome the breath in. Maybe a big inhale through the nose and a big sigh through the mouth. Maybe a final movement of fingers and toes. Maybe a scrunching up of the face and then a relaxing of the muscles of seeing and speaking. In the silence of your Shavasana, I invite you to consider Jillian Pransky's words. We don't have to fix anything. All we are doing is bringing tender, non-judgmental awareness to what we find in our body, in our heart, and in our mind. Making room, letting things be, so they can teach us what we need to know. Beginning to deepen your breath. Maybe drawing hands to your belly. Maybe drawing elbows closer in. If you've stayed in that cradle shape, being really gentle and slow as you draw the knees together and roll over onto your right side. If you've stretched out long, drawing the knees in, giving yourself a hug, any feeling, movement that feels good. Stretching arms and legs up to the sky, hugging them close in, and then making your way to lie over on your right side. A gentle hug, thanking yourself for coming. As you're ready, making your way up to sit. Remembering if you're coming from that restorative cradle shape to move slow, gently, and kindly with yourself as you roll over to one side and make your way. As you arrive, bring your hands together in front of your heart, lift your heart and bow your head. Allowing yourself to find refuge in anchoring in yourself, your experience, your breath. With full faith in your wisdom and your grace. Let's join our voices to close the class, chanting the sound of Om once and chanting Shanti 3 times together. Soft shoulders, gentle jaw, ground supporting you, breathe in. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Inhale to lift your face, draw your thumbs to the space between your eyebrows, tilt your head back, invite goodness and light in, bow forward, seal in your practice. Loka samasta, sukhi no bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be happy and free. Namaste. Thank you so much for coming to practice.